I should have known from the very first look that never held a trace of sincerity. I'm Emily Tran, a woman who gave her entire youth to keep a family from falling apart. But this isn't a story about sacrifice. This is a story about awakening, and the shocking revelation that forced an entire family to confront the truth they had long avoided. Do you think I was being too cold, or finally brave enough to walk away at the right moment? If it were you standing before a family willing to erase your name from everything just because you were too strong, what would you do? Don't hesitate to share something similar you've been through. Drop a comment below. I want to hear your story, and don't look away, because the next part will reveal the true cost of silence, and the moment I forced my entire family to face the truth they had always avoided. It was supposed to be just another ordinary weekend afternoon. I stopped by my parents' house in San Antonio like I always did, carrying a few pastries and some documents Mom needed help sorting. I'd always been the reliable daughter, the one who kept things in order while Monica was somewhere between another job change or chasing yet another fleeting dream. That 2-story red brick house, the one I paid to re-roof, the one where I replaced every leaking pipe, always gave me a strange sense of peace mixed with a dull ache. Even though I knew deep down I was just a temporary guest in someone else's heart, I still believed that family was the one thing that would never betray me. My mother, Linda, was trimming her orchids in the garden. "Emily, can you take a look at this stack of papers for me? I just found them in the drawer. It's probably old stuff," she said. I nodded, set the pastry plate on the dining table, and picked up the stack of yellowing papers. I wasn't trying to snoop, but in the middle of the mess, I found a cream-colored envelope boldly labeled, "Estate Plan and Will." I hesitated, not out of curiosity, but because I've always been the one who plans ahead, the one who shows up when everything falls apart. And I needed to know what exactly I was trying to hold together. The first page was a note of gratitude. The next was an asset overview. The house, now valued at over $450,000, a modest savings account, a newer model SUV, and a few other items. Everything. I emphasize, everything was allocated to Monica. My name was nowhere, except for a vague line that read, "We love both our daughters." My hands trembled. Every memory of working double shifts to help pay for that roof, every snowstorm I shoveled through at midnight to take Mom to the hospital, every sleepless night I spent sorting tax documents for Dad, all of it reduced to nameless shadows in a cold legal document. I stood up, the will in my hands. Mom had just walked back inside, drying her hands with a small towel embroidered with lotus flowers. "Emily, did you find the inventory list yet?" I turned around, my voice calm, eerily calm. "Mom, is this real?" She hesitated, her eyes darting away. "Oh, that's just a draft, sweetheart." "Everything's going to Monica?" I asked, lightly gripping the paper's edge, my tone still even, but each word cut like ice. Years of caregiving, supporting, managing, and I'm erased like I never existed? My father, Paul, came out of the living room holding a cup of coffee, like he was about to comment on the weather. "You don't have to react like this, Emily. You're doing fine. Monica, she's still trying to find her way." I laughed, dry and hollow. "She's 30, bouncing from job to job, living off handouts and can't even pay her phone bill. I handled every roof tile, every water bill, every one of Mom's migraines." Mom stepped closer, placing her hand over mine, as if gentleness could soothe steel. "Don't overthink it. I just wanted your sister to feel secure." I pulled my hand away, staring at her for a long moment. "What about me? The one who's kept this entire house standing for the past 10 years? Don't I deserve to feel secure too?" No one answered. I placed the will back on the table, as if returning a declaration of war. "Thank you for showing me where I really stand." I walked out of that house. No one called after me. Not a single voice tried to stop me. And strangely, for the first time in years, I didn't feel hurt anymore. Just empty. Empty in a way that chilled me to the bone. 2 weeks passed. No calls, no messages, as if I had never existed. I told myself that if they had even a shred of conscience, they would reach out. But the first thing I received was a text from Dad. "Emily, the payment is due. Please transfer it by Friday." I sat still. The message felt as cold as that will I'd found weeks ago. No "how are you?" No acknowledgement that anything had happened. I almost laughed, a bitter kind of laugh. I typed each word like I was etching them into ice. "Monica can handle it. She owns everything now, right?" I put the phone down, didn't wait for a reply. 10 minutes later, the screen lit up again. "Mom." "Emily, don't do this. We need to talk." I didn't reply, not out of anger, but because I was feeling something else entirely. A ruthless clarity. Was this the freedom I had once craved? But at that very moment, something inside my chest cracked open. If I'm no longer the one holding everything together, then who am I in this family? Does letting go make me the bad guy? I didn't know. But for the first time, I wanted to find out what it would feel like to live for myself. That Monday morning, I woke earlier than usual. The Austin sky was windless, the early sunlight cutting through the curtains and painting golden streaks on the wooden floor. Something in me had shifted, not with fire, but like a quiet current changing its course deep underground. I opened my phone. A new bank notification. A transfer request of $2,900 from Mom's account. No note attached. Just a number. A tap. A demand, cold and impersonal, like the itemized list in the will. I hit decline. No hesitation. Mom called minutes later. I stared at the screen until the fourth ring, then declined the call. Immediately, a text appeared. "Emily, I know you saw it. Why did you refuse?" I took a deep breath, closed my eyes, and typed, each word like a nail in a board. "Because that's no longer my responsibility. Ask Monica." Message sent. And I felt it, like a cord had been cut. I was no longer the girl who forgot her own birthday because she was busy fixing her parents' plumbing. I was no longer the backup when someone forgot to pay the electric bill. I started deleting every bill reminder, every payment alert, every system message from utility companies. It felt like performing a quiet ceremony, laying to rest the role I'd been trapped in my entire youth, the role of the silent savior. 3 days later, Monica messaged me. "You're so selfish. You always said family comes first." I read that line over and over. Family? The family she spoke of. Was it the same one that left me to carry everything, only to erase me from their so-called legacy? I replied with a single sentence. Family means fairness and respect, not using someone until they're empty. For the first time, I didn't feel guilty for saying no. I went to the bank and removed my name from the shared payment account. I called the utility companies and canceled all auto payments in my name. I revoked remote access to the heating and security system I had once set up to protect my parents, because they didn't know how to use the tech. That night, I passed by a bakery near my apartment. Without thinking, I walked in and ordered a dark chocolate cake, the kind I used to love but always considered too indulgent because that money should go to fixing the roof. I took a bite. Sweet, rich, free. The next morning, I woke without the phone ringing to demand a transfer. I went to work without worrying whether someone forgot the internet bill or lost the insurance documents. I enrolled in an online course on fine art photography, something I had dreamed of since I was 20, but always postponed because family comes first. For the first time, my life no longer revolved around other people's needs. But the past doesn't let go that easily. The following week, Mom called. I didn't pick up. A message came right after. Emily, the internet's been disconnected. Monica doesn't know how to log in. Can you help? Quietly, I walked to my bookshelf, pulled out the black notebook, filled with every password, account number, customer service line, everything I had once meticulously kept for the sake of helping my family. I held it in my hands for a few seconds, then I closed it, carefully placed it in the drawer, not out of anger, but because I was no longer the unpaid assistant of a thankless family. A few days later, Monica texted again. Are you serious? They're about to shut off the power. You're just going to let the house go dark? I replied with one line. I'm just letting everyone take responsibility for the choices they made. No one responded after that, only silence. But this time, the silence wasn't scary. It felt like a long exhale, after you finally put down a burden. I know they'll come back. When the house starts falling apart. When Monica, with her full inheritance, still can't figure out how to pay a bill. When there's no one else left to call. But this time, I won't step in. I'm not the solution. I'm the one who finally walked away from the cycle. I thought after I cut off contact they'd stay silent, that they'd figure things out on their own, that they'd at least, maybe, learn to take responsibility. But I had overestimated the ability of people who were used to surviving on someone else's sacrifices. One Wednesday morning, Olivia, a close colleague at the art center, sent me a rushed message. "Emily, you should check your mom's Facebook. There's something you need to see." I froze for a moment. I rarely use Facebook. Social media always felt like noise to me, but this time something in my chest tightened, a bad feeling. I logged in and searched for Linda Tran. My mother's profile was flooded with tearful posts, moral-sounding quotes, fading orchids, soft sunlight through an old wooden window, each carefully curated to paint a sorrowful, emotional scene. And then I saw that post. A mother's heart breaks when the daughter she loves turns her back, leaving her sick, aging parents in their hardest times. After years of sacrifice, all that remains is cold silence. The pain is unbearable. Over 80 shares, a flurry of comments, messages of sympathy, guilt-tripping, and judgment. People were calling me a disgraceful daughter, a betrayer of blood. I bit my lip. My eyes burned, not from pain, but from the sting of being turned into the villain in my own story. A few follow-up posts from my father and Monica made things clearer. We thought Emily understood the value of family, but when we needed her most, she chose to disappear. Dad wrote, "Some people are only kind from a distance. But when it comes to standing with family, they choose silence. Maybe that's what strength looks like now." Monica posted, alongside a black and white flower photo, her signature dramatic touch whenever she lost control of the narrative. I put my phone down. I didn't cry. I wasn't angry. What I felt was something sharper than ever before. Enough. If they mistook my silence for agreement, if they believed I would quietly endure being slandered, they'd forgotten that I still had a voice. That night, I opened my laptop. A blank screen, no fancy fonts, no background colors. Just the truth. Cold, direct, unpolished. My family is telling half a story. So, to be fair, here's the rest. My part. Attached, a photo of the will, listing Monica as the sole heir. House, utility, insurance bills, all in my name for the past 7 years. The final message from my mother, a $2,900 request, with no explanation. And one final line. My silence was never agreement. I was simply waiting for the right moment to speak. That moment is now. 10 minutes later, the first comments rolled in. "Oh my God, Emily, you did all of that?" I used to think Monica was the responsible one, but now it's clear. No one should be used like that, especially not by their own family. One by one, the curtain of performative morality they'd crafted began to fall. 2 days later, my mother deleted all her posts. My father deactivated his account. Monica changed her profile picture to a white flower. Same old playbook. When exposed, they turned themselves into victims. I didn't post anything else. No replies, no explanations. I just sat in my small apartment, the warm glow of the lamp softening the room, light rain tapping on the window pane. And inside me was a feeling I hadn't known in years. Justice. And a kind of peace that didn't come from forgiveness, but from being heard. I didn't need an apology. I didn't need them to bow their heads. I just needed them to stop. And it seemed, for once, they finally understood that Emily, the daughter they once treated as an infinite resource, was silent no more. Since the day I made that post, the world seemed to slow down. No more payment requests, no more missed calls, No more passive-aggressive reminders about the duties of an eldest daughter, only silence. But this time, silence wasn't the cold, hollow pit where I used to be abandoned. It was space. Space to breathe. Like a field after a storm. Chaotic, yes, but open. Unkempt, yet full of possibility. I returned to the video editing course I had signed up for, something I'd postponed many times because Monica couldn't fill out her health insurance forms, or my mother forgot a tax deadline. Now no one was calling. No one needed me to rescue a crisis. And for the first time, I didn't feel guilty. On Monday morning, I taught a photography class to a group of high school students at the Arts Center. They sat lined up in front of me, wide-eyed, thrilled to be holding cameras for the first time. They didn't know the story I'd just lived through. To them, I wasn't the daughter erased from a will. I was Miss Emily, the one who knew the best morning light came from the east and who could turn a sunbeam through a window into something worth keeping. That afternoon, I stopped by my favorite bakery, bought 2 small cakes to bring to class, and 1 iced black coffee, the kind I used to love but always denied myself with the excuse, "We already have coffee at home, don't be wasteful." That evening, I opened my laptop and wrote my first blog post. Title: Letting Go of the Role Others Assigned You and Living as Yourself. Just a few paragraphs. A quiet new habit. But I didn't expect what came next. Hundreds of shares within days. Messages from strangers. I was Emily once. I thought I was wrong for stepping back. Thank you for saying what I never could. I smiled. Not loudly, not triumphantly, just a quiet smile, like I had finally found myself under all the roles I'd been forced to wear. A week later, Marcus, a longtime friend in real estate, messaged me. "Emily, your parents' house is up for sale, 218 Elm Street. Price just dropped $30,000. Looks like they're in trouble." I clicked the link. There it was. The house. The darkened roof. The rotting wooden fence. The chipped paint around the windows. The house I had once preserved with my entire youth. The house that had survived off my silent presence, now abandoned, worn down, and no one left who knew how to hold it together. I didn't feel joy. I didn't feel sadness. I felt right. Because that house, just like that entire family system, only stood because I was holding it up. A few days later, Ms. Lorraine, the elderly neighbor from across the street, called me. "Hi, Emily. I just wanted to check on you a bit. Oh, and it looks like Monica moved back in. I've seen her around the market lately. Doesn't seem too happy." I thanked her and hung up. I felt nothing. No curiosity. No worry. Just a simple truth. I no longer lived in that story. I returned to my camera, to my class, to quiet afternoons at the cafe, capturing streaks of sunlight on wooden tables, freezing the quiet moments of a woman relearning how to love herself. I opened my savings account. For the first time in 10 years, the numbers were rising, consistently. I placed a down payment on a semi-professional camera, something I once considered a luxury. I booked a fall trip to Seattle, just to photograph the changing leaves. No reason. No one waiting for me at home. I kept writing blog posts, not to defend myself, but to set myself free. And bit by bit, I began to understand. Not everyone who shares the Tron name is family. Not everyone who shares your blood knows how to honor it. That evening, as I edited photos in the corner of a quiet cafe near home, my phone buzzed. A notification from the real estate site. Price drop, 218 Elm Street. Another $30,000. Owners need to sell urgently. I looked at the photo of the house on the screen, then tapped hide notification. No hesitation, no second thoughts, no sting. And I smiled, softly, like a breeze. A smile that needed no audience, a peace that required no apology, an ending that didn't need thunder. It was a Saturday afternoon. I had just wrapped up a photography workshop with a group of high school students. Autumn in Austin brought a slight chill, and the golden hour sunlight poured across the streets like honey. I didn't expect anything unusual that day, All I wanted was a cup of hot tea, a quiet evening, and time to finish editing some photos. But as I pulled into the parking lot outside my apartment complex, I noticed a familiar silver minivan parked near the gate, the same vehicle I had once co-signed for 4 years ago to help my father avoid defaulting on a loan. I'd transferred full ownership to him as a final act of trust. Now it sat there again, like a harsh reminder of a past I'd worked so hard to bury. I turned off the engine and stepped out of the car. My heart didn't race. I didn't shake. Just heavy. The weight of knowing a familiar script was about to unfold. My parents stood by the entrance. My mother held a worn leather purse, gripping the handles tightly, her eyes full of worry. My father stood behind her, gaze avoiding mine. Monica stood a little farther off, arms crossed, clutching her handbag, makeup pale, and something about her looked close to panic. I said nothing, didn't move closer. I just stood a few steps away, arms folded across my chest. I waited for them to speak first. My mother's voice trembled. "Emily, I'm sorry to come here like this, but things are getting out of hand. The bank is coming to reassess the house next week." I didn't respond. The wind tugged at the edge of my coat. I looked at my father. He cleared his throat, sounding smaller and more tired than I remembered. "We were wrong, Emily, I know. But if the house is foreclosed, your mother won't survive it." I held his gaze, unblinking. Then softly, slowly, I asked, "Then why did you think I wasn't worth mentioning in the will?" My father looked down, fidgeting with the hem of his coat like a child caught doing something wrong. "At the time, we thought you were fine. You've always been stronger than Monica." I turned to Monica. She bit her lip, eyes unsettled. "And Monica?" I asked, my tone as calm as if I were asking about the weather. "She gets to fail, to be forgiven, to inherit everything, and still doesn't know how to pay a single bill?" Monica gripped her purse tighter, silent. I stepped forward, just once, enough to stop them from speaking too soon. "I gave away my youth, without conditions, without asking for anything in return. And what did I get back? Oblivion." My mother burst into tears. "I didn't think it would turn out this way. Emily, just a few months of help, just until things stabilize." I shook my head, gently interrupting her, voice still soft. "I'm not saying no because I can't. I'm saying no because if I do this, you'll all believe nothing has to change." A gust of wind swept across the pavement, dry leaves scattered beneath our feet. Monica finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't think it would get so complicated. I thought, with time." I looked her straight in the eyes. "I waited. I warned you. I hoped. But this family chose to ignore everything." My mother murmured, barely audible. "So, this is the end?" I looked at her. The woman I once drove to the ER in a storm. The one I fed spoonfuls of congee in a hospital bed. And I saw clearly now the line between blood ties and love that came with conditions. "I didn't end anything," I said, slow and steady. "It ended the moment you decided who was worth remembering and who wasn't." No one replied. I pulled out my keys and stepped up to the landing. Before unlocking the door, I turned back. "I hope you find a way, but I'm no longer this family's life raft." I looked at Monica, calm and firm. "If you really want to grow up, this is your chance. I've stepped off the cycle. Now it's your turn." I opened the door, stepped inside, and gently closed it behind me. The wind in the hallway slipped through the doorframe, carrying the fading footsteps of 3 people. This time, no crying, no pleading, just silence. And me, standing in my sunlit living room. No pain, no sorrow, only peace, deep and full. Like I had finally cleaned the last room in the home of my soul after years of quiet chaos. I thought after that last encounter they'd stay silent longer. I was wrong. Just 3 days later, at my first photo exhibition, held at a small cafe owned by a friend, Marcus, a longtime friend and real estate agent, approached me with a hesitant look. "Emily, Did you know your parents' house is up for urgent sale? The one on Vine Street? I nodded. We just updated the listings, he continued. That property's been flagged as high risk for foreclosure. It's been a while since anyone came to see it. Everyone says it's too old, too run down. I wasn't surprised. I simply took another gentle sip of my ginger tea. Marcus hesitated. Are you okay? I smiled. I'm okay. Looks like they're not. He seemed like he wanted to say more, but only nodded quietly before walking away. That night, when I got back to my apartment, an email appeared in my inbox from a legal aid organization. New program, seeking mentors for elderly homeowners at risk of losing their homes. I sat still for a while. Then I clicked sign up. Not for my parents, not for Monica, but for me, the person who finally understood that giving doesn't mean carrying everything alone. Another week passed. I was editing photos at my usual cafe when Ms. Lorraine called. She'd been our neighbor for over 20 years. Emily, just checking in. Yesterday Denise came by to borrow my printer. Said she's looking for an agent. Sounds like they're struggling to keep up. I thanked her, wished her well, and hung up. No anger, no pity, no joy. Just the quiet feeling of watching an old movie, when you already know how it ends. The next night, I received a message from a stranger on Instagram. Hi, Emily. I was a classmate of Monica's. I know a bit about your family. I just wanted to say, you're really strong. The message came from someone completely unrelated, yet it was the first time I'd felt truly seen without strings attached. On Sunday, I took a walk through the park near Liberty Lake, camera around my neck, sunlight filtering through the bare tree branches. A young boy ran ahead while his mother called out to him, laughing. I snapped the shutter. Just a small moment, but my heart grew still. I used to believe that family was an unbreakable bond, that love came without conditions, that if you kept giving, one day it would all be returned. I was wrong. Late that night, I received a handwritten letter. Blue envelope, the handwriting shaky but familiar. It was from my mother. I don't know where to begin. I haven't slept in days. Your father's getting weaker. I don't know how much time we have left to fix this, but if you're still willing, I'm here. I didn't cry. I didn't reply. I simply folded the letter, gently placing it in a drawer, alongside unprocessed photos and unfinished journal entries, not out of resentment, but because I no longer had the strength to sacrifice myself in silence. The following week, I held my first solo photo exhibition, Touching the Silence, at a little corner cafe. People came. Some paused in front of the photos in stillness, images of wildflowers scattered on cracked concrete, an elderly woman clutching a steaming cup of tea, sunlight slanting through a narrow window. One middle-aged woman came up to shake my hand, eyes glistening. I don't know why, but every photo, it feels like it speaks for all the people who've stayed quiet for too long. I smiled. No need to say anything. Because she was right. I used to be that person, silent to keep the peace, to feel loved, to avoid being blamed. But now, I've chosen a different kind of silence, the kind that comes from finally being myself. Since that photo exhibition, everything began to flow like a stream no longer blocked by stones, gentle, steady, and free. No more gas bills forwarded to me, no more urgent messages asking me to send money because Monica forgot to pay Mom's tuition. No one waiting for me to rescue them, no one assuming I'd always be the shade to shield them from the sun. I woke up each morning with a quiet relief I couldn't name. No more reminders buzzing about mortgage due dates, no longer tied to a house I never chose, yet once believed was mine. I began taking evening walks, no destination in mind. Just because I liked the way my feet felt grounded, the cold slipping through my coat, the rustling wind playing with the trees lining the path, I photographed everything, a fallen leaf tilted on a park bench, an old man laughing with a tiny dog in his lap, a streak of golden light passing through tree branches, glowing in someone's hair like a soft halo. And I realized I had spent too many years holding up a roof I forgot to look up at the sky. My personal blog slowly gained readers. Reflections on walking away from toxic family ties, on the courage to say no, on learning to care for myself, became a quiet haven for others who had once stayed silent. A girl from Ohio wrote, "You don't know me, but your story was the reason I dared to leave home that night." A middle-aged man messaged, "Thank you. I thought I was a terrible son just because I couldn't keep enduring anymore." I read each message in silence, not with pride, not with arrogance, just a deep knowing. My voice had finally found someone who was listening. On Saturday, I got a text from Marcus. "The house on Elm Street dropped another $30,000. Owner desperate to sell. Still no offers." I didn't open the link. I didn't need to see that house anymore. To me, it was just a name on an old list. A place once called home, but never truly made me feel like I belonged. I turned off my phone, picked up my camera, adjusted the ISO, and stepped outside, into the light, where I got to choose the frame, the angle, and the direction. Winter came earlier than usual. One quiet weekend evening, I stood at the edge of Liberty Lake, camera in hand, a pale purple scarf around my neck. The sun was setting, casting golden threads of light through the bare trees, delicate and thin like silk. A young boy ran past, laughing loudly. His mother followed, laughing too. I lifted my camera and caught the moment. His feet just brushing the ground, the sunlight warming his back. His shadow stretched behind him like a memory not yet faded. And I understood. Some things can't be held on to, because they were never truly yours. Family, without respect and gratitude, is just an empty word. I once believed love didn't need conditions. I thought if I gave enough, someone would finally see me. But I was wrong. Love doesn't come from silent sacrifice. And sometimes you have to walk out of your own house to find yourself. Now, I live a life without anyone calling, "Emily, please save me." No more sleepless nights over someone else's forgotten bill. No more phones ringing, trying to pull me back into the role of the one who carries everything. I'm no longer the eldest daughter of the Tran family. I'm Emily, the woman who learned to say, "Enough," the one who finally laid it all down and stepped into her own light. Since the day I chose silence through action instead of endurance, my life began to change, no longer revolving around who needed me, no longer measuring my worth by how useful I was to others, and no longer burdened by guilt when someone called me cold. I live in a small apartment filled with sunlight and greenery. On my bookshelf are titles I never dared to buy before because there were always more important things to spend on. In my kitchen cabinet are teas I love. No need to ask permission to enjoy them. Every morning I open the curtains and let the light pour in like a gentle reminder. I have the right to be here. No justification needed, no one's approval required. One early winter day, I stopped by the art center to hang a few photo frames for the new class. Olivia, an old colleague, glanced at me and laughed. "You know, you look like someone who's finally taken off an invisible cloak they've worn for years." I smiled. "You're right. And that cloak was so heavy. I no longer speak with my parents or Monica, not out of anger, but because some relationships must be laid down, not out of hate, but to make space for life to continue. The house on Elm Street was finally sold, for nearly a third less than its original value. The new agent contacted Marcus and said, the condition of the house was worse than expected. No maintenance records. No one knew when the electrical wiring had last been checked. I didn't feel sorrow. That house had stayed standing, because of me. Its decay was inevitable once those who relied on it never learned to care for what they assumed would always be there. In March, I hosted a small gathering called Boundaries in Family Relationships. No slides, no formal lecture, just me, a chair, and a few stories. At the end, a woman in her 50s stood up, eyes glistening. "Thank you. I always thought I was the only one who needed to escape my own home just to breathe." I walked over and embraced her softly. I didn't say anything. Some pain only needs to be acknowledged to be eased. Spring arrived. I planned a photography trip along the route from Texas to Colorado, alone. Just me, my camera, a notebook, and a map of places I wanted to stop at. Not because someone was waiting, but because I chose to be there. The night before I left, I sat by the window and opened the letter from my mother, the one I had tucked away in a drawer for months. I reread the familiar handwriting. "I don't know if we still have time to start again." I folded the letter and placed it in a wooden box, next to undeveloped film and unfinished journal entries. Not out of resentment, but because I no longer had the strength to quietly sacrifice myself. I'm no longer the daughter they called when the account hit zero. No longer the sister who covered one last time that turned into 100 more. No longer family in meetings I was never invited to speak in. I am Emily, a woman who chose to walk away from a role assigned to her since childhood, to live a life that doesn't need anyone's nod of approval. I don't know what the future holds. There will come a time when I'm weaker, when I'll need help, when I'll have to lean on someone, but I know this much. Family, love, any bond at all, without respect and being heard, are just masks, and I've taken them all off. One crisp morning, I stood in the Highlands, camera in hand. The sun had just risen beyond the ridge, its first light touching the lens. I clicked the shutter, and in that moment, I knew. I didn't need to look back. I didn't need anyone's permission to feel this light. True freedom isn't about running away. It's about staying, without being chained. I smiled. Not because everything was perfect, but because I had chosen myself, no longer choosing sacrifice. Ending doesn't mean closure. It's just the door swinging open to a new chapter where I hold the pen. No one else.